Georgia was a top 5 team in 2019. Now they're probably a better version of that, not just because they're just better, they're probably just because they're more accomplished and they have the confidence of being able to achieve what they achieved last year. But South Carolina, 4-8, they're better than that. They're just a better team with a better quarterback and the whole deal. And we know what happened in Athens. Can people dream? Can Gamecock Nation dream?
Well, Mark, you know what's so funny is I actually mentioned that this morning. I don't know if you saw it, but, spread opened up at Georgia minus 26, and it's now dropped to the Dogs are a 24.5-point favorite. And the last time Georgia was a 24.5-point favorite going into the game was 2019 when the unthinkable happened. Can Gamecock fans dream? Yeah, I think so. I think, though, for that to happen, what happened in 2019 would have to happen again. Stetson Bennett's got to throw 3 picks. One of them's got to be a pick 6. You probably need a special teams touchdown. You need Spencer Rattler to play the game of his life or to play at an elite level. You need somehow, some way, your guys on the line of scrimmage to play their best game of the season, right? You look back at that 2019 game, a lot of weird things happened, right? And that's what you'll need to happen again. Hey, it's college football. Upsets can happen. You never know. It's a game at Willie B. You never know. But if Georgia comes in, plays their B game or better, it doesn't matter what the Gamecocks do. Let me just put it that way. So you can dream. Hell, I'm going to dream. I'm going to be there. I'm certainly dreaming, right? I got my fingers crossed and I hope and pray. But, when you're making a pick and a projection, I will say this. Believe it or not, in 2019, I had this weird feeling of optimism going into that game. I don't know what it was. I mean, I picked Georgia to win by about 3 touchdowns or so, but I felt like, I don't know. There's something about this game that feels weird. I mean, like you mentioned, I think that Georgia team or this Georgia team is way better than that Georgia team. This South Carolina team compared to that South Carolina team, I think is better, obviously. I mean, that team went 4-8, lost to Appalachian State. So I think this team is better. But, certainly you can dream. But it's going to take a unique set of circumstances. Mark, the problem is you can't really bank on that. I mean, I still, Mark, look back at that 2019 game and say, how did South Carolina win that game? I mean, that to me is probably the most absurd final result in the history of Gamecocks football. Like, it's the most improbable upset to ever take place. And that's not me taking anything away from the game. That's more so highlighting how incredible that was. So you can dream for sure. I'd put your odds of winning. I think ESPN's got you at 8%. I would have said 5%. So the odds are not good. But, hey, man, it's college football. And, all you can ask for is the opportunity, I guess.
So, Chris, if we back up from there and take the realistic approach, but the optimistic, realistic approach, what kind of performance out of South Carolina is going to have you coming away from maybe even a 3-touchdown loss and saying, I feel better about this team?
Yeah, I mean, that Mark, that's what it's about, is making this a game late into the ball game, right? I mean, that's because this season was always going to be judged based off how you won and how you lost football games, right? And so if you don't beat Georgia, it's not the end of the world, right? Nobody's gonna question Shane Beamer or question this football program or the trajectory. But you look at last year, you look at year one, you just got blown out, right? Got blown out of the water against the likes of Georgia, A&M, Clemson, all the big games, whatever. So it's about how you win and lose. So if you can make this, it's a 10-point game. It's a 14-point game going into the fourth quarter. And I know that sounds terrible. The expectations are so low. That's where we are. You don't like it? Stop watching. I don't know what to tell you. That's where we are. Make it a fourth quarter game. I think getting any sort of push, Oregon ran for 140 yards on Georgia. Dude, if you can run for 100 yards or more, I mean, that would be, I think that'd be a hell of an accomplishment. And again, maybe that just goes to show how low the floor is. But Mark, in the first 2 games you've ran for, I think the totals were something like 64 and 49 yards or something like that. So if you could run for 100 or more against Georgia, hey, I think scoring a touchdown against Georgia would be an accomplishment, because Georgia hasn't even allowed one yet this season. Granted, I think the Gamecocks will indeed score a touchdown. I just think make it a close, competitive ball game. Again, Mark, I can handle Georgia being the better football team, them beating you, but give the Dogs hell for 60 minutes. That's really all I ask for. You know what I mean? There are no moral victories, but when you keep a realistic perspective and a realistic scope like we do, and you understand where your program is and where Georgia's program is, and they're where you want to be, But again, it's about playing the right way, executing. You're at home, putting your best foot forward for 60 minutes. Let the chips fall where you may. You know what? If Georgia beats you by 28 and they just flat out beat you, tip your cap to the better football team. But, I think encouraging signs will be if you can just slow down the run defensively and you can just somewhat run the football. Also, I think if you get a positive performance out of Spencer Rattler, I think that would go a long way. Again, I'm not saying him throw for 300 yards, but just take care of the football, make plays when they're there, play smart football, kind of see his talent shine, if you will. I think most certainly that would be a positive as well. But, there's no moral victories, Mark. I mean, damn it, we're in excuse my language. We're in SEC football, though. I mean, there's no moral victories here, but certainly there can be encouraging signs in this ball game. All about in year 2 of Beamer, how you win and lose, in my opinion.
40-13 last year. I remember watching that game. And if you take the simple approach, like you mentioned earlier, roughly the same type teams outside of Spencer Rattler, he should be able to produce some more points than 40-13. So maybe it's a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, that was interesting going in that game last year, because I feel like we were having pretty much the same conversation in regards to, will South Carolina even score a touchdown? And they go right down the field, the opening drive. I'll be curious to see what Marcus Satterfield's game plan is. That first drive is always scripted. What that first drive looks like in this ball game. Would not be surprising. They're going to have something dialed up, if you will, for Georgia. And that, of course, they're watching them on film all week. It's going to be, what do you do beyond that? Because again, Georgia's just elite defensively. I mean, listen, the transitive property doesn't really apply in college football, but you look at last year and that, what was it? 41-13. You said was the final on that one. 41-13.
Yeah.
40-13. Okay. And the Gamecocks did cover the spread for what it's worth, but I mean, listen, miracles can't happen. Crazy things can't happen. Realistically, I'd just like to see South Carolina make this a fourth quarter game. It just in some whatever. I mean, if you're down by 10-14 going to the fourth quarter, I think that's a success. You're keeping yourself within striking distance. What Gamecock fans just can't live with, again, is just the game being over by halftime. That's how it's felt recently, where it's just, you see it, we're getting dominated. And this team has had such a bad habit of getting off the slow starts. Right. So, again, just give Georgia hell for 4 quarters, see where the chips fall. You never know. College football is crazy. We saw it back in 2019. But, I'll drop a score prediction later this week. But, I got to be honest with you. I'm keeping my expectations in check for this one, because I do believe in Georgia. I think it's more so tip the cap to Georgia. They're an elite football team. Again, I've got them going undefeated, losing to Bama in the SEC title, but I got them going undefeated, dude. They're legit. I mean, Kirby and those guys, they've done an incredible job. They recruited at a high level. I mean, they got all these new players on defense. I understand, but this year's crop of guys, these new guys, they're just the next round of draft picks. You know what I mean? So it's a tall task for the Gamecocks, no doubt. And you look down you look across the board. I mean, where would you say the Gamecocks have the advantage? I'd argue nowhere. The only place you could really argue is the quarterback position. I don't think Stetson Bennett gets enough love, to be honest with you. So he doesn't. So it will take a Herculean effort, I think, for the Gamecocks to make this, a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter. But again, crazier things have happened.
Hopefully Cam Smith and R.J. Roderick are back to give you more star power in the secondary and experience right there. They're going to be needed. And
I mean, Mark, and you're not to cut you off, Mark, but I think those guys will be okay. But that's the crazy thing, because you talk about the secondary. What's interesting is it's like the game plan, I think, defensively is the same for the third week in a row. You have to slow down the run. You have to get Georgia in third and long. Because here's the thing. If you really do have a top 10 nationally ranked secondary, they can't flourish and thrive if you're not getting the opposing offense into passing downs. You know what I mean? Like, that was the problem against Arkansas. I mean, you can't make a living when it's 2nd and 2 all day. So when it's 3rd and 3 all day, like, you just don't have a chance. So it's the game plan is the exact same. I think the Gamecocks, they have to load the box. They have to sell on stopping the run. And that's all fine and dandy, but you look at those tight ends Georgia has. You look at the weapons they've got on the outside that I think are underrated. Stetson Bennett's thrown for 300+ 2 straight weeks. I mean, I tell you, I really feel for Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White, and Shane Beamer sitting in that film room this week, because they see it. They see it, right? Everybody who plays Georgia is going to see it. how do you attack them? You know, you really do. I mean, going into a game like this, you really do have to hope for an off day from the Bulldogs. You just have to. You have to hope they're turning the ball over. They're just not sharp. Maybe they're overlooking the Gamecocks. God forbid. Maybe they spent their entire week at Buddha Bar in downtown Athens and coming to this one sluggish. I don't know, but that's what you have to hope for. Because, again, if Georgia's sharp, they're executing, they're playing their A game, there's only one team in the country, Mark, I think can probably beat them, and that's Alabama. So, you know, we'll see.
Chris Phillips, the Daily Crow, the Spurs Up Show. We always appreciate Chris stopping by, giving us the lowdown on South Carolina football. Chris, appreciate it. Have a great week. Enjoy the game regardless of the score.
Mark, I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for having me.